Hey everyone, and welcome to this deep dive, into the world of story plot methods.
Ooh, story plot methods.
Yeah, those frameworks that writers use to structure their narratives.
Right.
Today we're going to be looking at three of the most popular ones: Freytag's Pyramid Save the Cat.
Oh yeah.
And The Hero's Journey.
Classic.
We'll be using examples from books and movies too.
I love it.
So yeah, get ready for some serious story analysis.
I am so ready for this. It's going to be so cool to see how these frameworks all come together.
Right.
Like how they each put their own spin on creating a satisfying narrative arc.
Yeah, exactly. Each one kind of has their own emphasis on a different part of storytelling.
Exactly. Shall we start with
Which one are we starting with?
how about we start with a classic?
Ooh, a classic.
Yeah, Freytag's Pyramid.
Okay.
Think of a pyramid
I'm picturing a pyramid.
with the peak at the top representing the climax of the story.
Ooh, okay, got it.
So this structure was proposed by Gustav Freytag. He was a 19th century playwright, and he used it to represent the rising and falling action in a story.
So it's not just about pinpointing the climax, it's about understanding how we get there
Exactly.
and how we move away from it.
Yes. And he outlined 5 stages for that journey. The first one is the exposition, and that's where we meet the characters, right?
Okay.
We get a sense of the setting, and we start to understand the situation.
That's like the foundation of the story.
It's a foundation, exactly.
Okay.
And then from there, we move to rising action, and that's where all those conflicts and all those complications start popping up.
And the stakes get higher.
Exactly. The tension is rising, and it keeps, the audience on the edge of their seat.
Right. That what's going to happen next feeling.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the climax, the peak of the pyramid, that turning point in the story,
Right.
Where the protagonist faces their greatest challenge, their greatest fear. Interestingly, Freytag put the climax right at the peak of the pyramid, but sometimes modern interpretations, particularly in film,
Okay.
they move it a little bit later, like the final confrontation. You know how sometimes that feels like the real climax?
Right.
But technically it's actually in the falling action phase.
So it's not always a literal peak then.
Not always, but it's the moment
Yeah.
that's the most important to the story, to the outcome of the story.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So then after the climax, we come to the falling action, and that's where we're dealing with all of the consequences.
Yeah.
Right? And then finally, the denouement, or you could call it the resolution, where all the loose ends are tied up.
Yeah. It's like a nice exhale at the end.
Exactly, deep exhale.
Yeah.
Now, a great example of this is, Romeo and Juliet.
Oh, yeah.
It follows that 5-act structure perfectly.
Oh, yeah.
With, the deaths of Tybalt and Mercutio being the climax.
Right.
Which then leads us to that tragic ending.
Right.
Or think about The Great Gatsby. The tension builds up, so slowly to that confrontation at the Plaza Hotel.
Ooh, yes.
It's like you can feel the temperature rising.
You can feel it.
Right. And even fantasy like Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone
Okay.
follows Freytag's Pyramid.
Yeah.
We go from Harry's ordinary world to his ultimate showdown with Voldemort.
It really does follow that rise and fall.
It does. So it's a pretty versatile framework. You can apply it to tragedies, to
Fantasy.
romances, to fantasy, to really anything.
Yeah, everything. Yeah.
But it's not perfect. Because when we think about more unconventional narratives, like stories that might play with the chronology of events like Memento,
Right.
or those that just straight up defy traditional plot structures, it's not going to fit.
Yeah.
It's not going to fit into the pyramid.
Right. It's not a one size fits all then.
It's not. No.
It's like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's move on to something a little bit more prescriptive. Save the Cat.
Ooh, Save the Cat.
Yes. Have you heard of this one?
I have heard of it, but I'm not sure I entirely understand it.
Okay. Well, it was developed by Blake Snyder, a screenwriter, and it really focuses on crafting a protagonist that the audience is going to love, and then using specific plot beats
Okay.
to keep them engaged.
I like that.
Yeah. So the name is a little bit odd.
It is a little bit odd. Does someone actually save a cat?
Not literally, no.
Okay.
But the idea comes from this, this image of having the protagonist do something kind of early on in the story, like saving a cat,
Okay.
which instantly makes the audience like them more.
Oh, I see. It's about forming that connection right away.
Exactly, that emotional connection.
I like that.
Right off the bat.
Yeah.
So Snyder, he actually broke the story down into 15 key beats.
15.
15, yeah.
Wow, that's pretty specific.
It is very specific. It's like a roadmap for writers and, especially new writers or anyone who struggles with plot.
Okay, so it's like, okay, I need to hit this, and this.
Exactly. It helps to keep you moving forward and keep the audience hooked. So what are some of those beats?
Yeah, what are some of those beats?
Well, you start with the opening image, that sets the scene, the visuals.
Okay.
Then you've got themes stated, so that's where the core idea is introduced.
Oh, early on.
Yeah, so it's like a little bit of foreshadowing,
Okay.
And then, of course, you've got the save the cat moment, the act of kindness or bravery.
Right, that makes us care
Yes.
about the character.
Exactly, and then you've got the catalyst.
Ooh, the catalyst.
The catalyst, which is the event that throws the protagonist's world into chaos.
That inciting incident.
The inciting incident, exactly.
Okay.
So that could be, they receive a mysterious letter. Maybe they experience a sudden loss. Anything that takes them out of their comfort zone.
Right, gets the ball rolling?
Gets the ball rolling, exactly. And as the story progresses, you reach the midpoint.
Okay, the midpoint.
Which is a crucial turning point that really, raises the stakes. So that could be a false victory that makes them think, oh, I've got this, only to have it snatched away.
Right.
Or it could be a major setback that forces them to rethink everything.
Keeps us on our toes.
Keeps the audience guessing, exactly.
Yeah, what about that dark night of the soul, though?
Ooh, the dark night of the soul. That's the lowest point.
Okay.
For the protagonist, they've lost all hope. They doubt themselves.
Ooh.
And this is where we really see that character development, they're confronting their inner demons.
They got to hit rock bottom.
They got to hit rock bottom before they can rise up again.
Yeah, I see that.
So let's look at some examples.
Okay.
So in the first Harry Potter book,
Okay.
you remember when Harry saves Dudley from the Dursleys, even though they're awful to him?
Oh, yeah.
That's a classic save the cat moment,
It is.
right? It makes us root for him instantly.
Yes.
Or in Parasite,
Okay.
the Kim family's deception to get that job with the Park family.
Right.
That's kind of their save the cat moment. It's not traditionally heroic,
Right.
but it does make us sympathize with them.
It does.
And we understand why they're doing what they're doing.
Yes.
The Hunger Games,
Okay.
Katniss volunteering as tribute to save Primrose.
Oh, yeah.
Classic save the cat moment.
It is.
Right away, we see her bravery.
We do.
And we connect with her character.
Yes.
So, save the cat. It provides that clear structure.
Yeah.
It focuses on creating a protagonist the audience is going to love, but
there's got to be some downsides, right?
there are some potential downsides. If you rely too heavily on those 15 beats without adding in your own creativity,
Right.
the stories can become a bit formulaic.
We don't want all stories to be the same. I want that little something special.
We want them to be unique. So it's about finding that balance between structure and creative freedom.
Right.
So speaking of journeys, how about we move on to the hero's journey?
Ooh, I like the hero's journey. This is a good one.
Yeah, it's a classic one.
Yeah.
It was identified by Joseph Campbell, a mythologist, and it explores this universal archetype of the hero's transformative adventure.
Ooh, I've heard of it,
Have you?
but I don't know much about it.
Okay, well, he wrote a book, The Hero with a Thousand Faces,
Okay.
and he explores myths and stories across cultures and time periods, and he finds this recurring pattern,
Oh, wow.
the monomyth that heroes always embark on.
So it transcends cultures.
It transcends cultures, exactly.
It's about the human experience.
Yes, exactly. But it is worth noting that some people criticize this method.
Okay.
They say that it oversimplifies complex narratives or that it forces stories into a box.
Right.
But it is still a very powerful tool for
Yeah.
understanding the underlying structure of many stories.
Right, and the themes that we see.
And the universal themes, exactly.
Yeah.
So at its core, the hero's journey emphasizes the protagonist's inner transformation. So it's not just what's happening on the outside.
Right.
It's about how they're changing on the inside.
Their emotional journey.
Their emotional and psychological growth, exactly.
Okay.
So Campbell outlines 12 stages in this journey.
12. This is a long one.
It is a long one, but we begin with the ordinary world where we meet the hero, in their normal life
Okay.
before the call to adventure comes along.
Before everything gets shaken up.
Exactly.
Right.
And then, of course, you have the call to adventure. This is a challenge, an opportunity that pushes them out of their comfort zone.
Right. It's that spark.
It is that spark.
That gets things going.
But oftentimes, they don't want to go.
Right.
So we have the refusal of the call.
You're hesitant.
They're hesitant, they're doubtful, they're scared,
Right.
which,
Makes them human.
it makes them human, exactly. And then eventually they meet a mentor,
Okay, a mentor.
someone who guides them, supports them.
Like a Gandalf or a Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Exactly, those wise figures.
Yeah.
And then you have crossing the threshold. This is that point of no return.
Right.
They leave their familiar world behind and they step into the unknown.
It's like going through a portal.
Exactly. And then from there, you
It's,
have tests allies and enemies. So they're challenged, they have to learn.
Right.
They meet people who will help them and people who will try to stop them.
It's all about growth.
It's all about growth, exactly.
Yeah.
And as they progress, we come to the approach to the inmost cave.
The inmost cave.
Yes. This is where they're preparing for the hardest part.
Okay.
You know, it's the calm before the storm.
Right.
And then that leads us to the ordeal.
Ooh, the ordeal.
This is the climax of the hero's journey,
Okay.
where they face their greatest fear, they confront their enemy, and we see this death and rebirth.
Wow.
It could be literal or it could be symbolic.
It's the moment that defines them.
It does.
Yeah.
And if they succeed, they get a reward.
Okay, the reward.
So maybe they get a treasure, maybe they gain wisdom or a sense of peace. You know?
Right, it's that feeling of I did it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But wait, there's more.
Oh, that's right.
Because they still have to go on the road back.
Okay, the road back.
Return to their ordinary world, but oftentimes that's full of challenges too.
Right, they have to readjust.
They do. And then when they get back, you have the resurrection.
The resurrection.
The final test, you know, to solidify their growth.
Right, they've got to prove they've actually changed.
They do. And finally, they return with the elixir.
The elixir.
So they bring back a gift or some wisdom
Okay.
to share with their community.
So they use what they've learned
Exactly.
to help others.
Yes. So think about the Odyssey.
Okay.
You know, Odysseus's journey home after the Trojan War.
Right.
He goes through so many trials. He faces enemies. He finds friends.
Yeah.
And he comes home a changed man.
Right.
Or Star Wars.
Okay.
Luke Skywalker
Yes.
starts as this farm boy yearning for something more.
Right.
And becomes a Jedi Knight.
Love that one.
And Lord of the Rings, Frodo's quest to destroy the ring, that's a classic hero's journey.
It is.
He leaves his home, he faces danger, and he sacrifices everything to save Middle-earth.
It's a great framework.
It's very powerful for those epic tales. Yeah. You know, where we see transformation and self-discovery, but again, it's not perfect.
It's not.
It might not be the best fit if you have multiple protagonists.
Right.
Or a big ensemble cast.
It's like trying to cram everyone into that hero mold.
Exactly.
So, okay, so we've talked about 3 different methods.
We have.
Freytag's Pyramids, Save the Cat, and the hero's journey.
Yes.
How do they all stack up?
Well, they each have their own approach, but they share common ground.
Oh, really?
Yes. They all emphasize structure rising action,
Okay.
a climax, and a resolution.
So they all want that satisfying arc,
Yes.
but they just take different paths.
Different paths to get there, exactly.
Okay.
Now, it's interesting to note that Save the Cat is actually kind of like a more detailed version of the hero's journey.
Oh,
You know, the beats of Save the Cat align with the broader stages.
I see.
So, for example, the Save the Cat moment often happens early in the hero's journey
Right.
to help the audience connect with the character right away. And the midpoint in Save the Cat, that often lines up with the ordeal or the reward stage in the hero's journey.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting.
Right. They're not totally separate. They can actually build on each other.
I see that. Yeah.
So it's not really about choosing one over the other. It's about understanding how they all work together.
Right. It enriches our understanding.
Exactly. And remember, these are just frameworks.
Okay.
They're guides, not rules.
Okay.
And there's always room for creativity.
Right.
Breaking the mold.
Right. Some of the best stories don't follow the rules at all.
Exactly.
It's like in music, someone who improvises a great solo,
a great analogy.
but they're still staying true to the melody of the song.
Exactly. And speaking of breaking the mold,
Okay.
why don't we talk about some of the stories that don't follow the traditional structure
I'd love to.
in our next segment?
Yes. Let's do it.
It's amazing how some stories just completely flip the script on structure.
Yeah. Like we were just talking about Memento.
Yeah,
It's told in reverse.
it is.
How does that even work with Freytag's Pyramid?
It's a great example of taking that familiar framework and doing something completely unexpected with it.
Okay.
It's like Christopher Nolan took that pyramid, flipped it on its head,
Oh, wow.
started with the resolution, and worked backwards.
So instead of building to the climax,
Yeah.
we're starting at the climax and then unraveling.
Exactly. And that really forces the audience to engage with the story in a whole different way.
Right.
We're constantly trying to put those pieces together,
Yes.
filling in the gaps as we go back in time.
It's like we're detectives
Yeah.
trying to solve the mystery along with the protagonist.
Exactly. And what's so cool is that even though the structure's reversed,
Right.
the emotional impact of those key moments, like the climax, Dark Night of the Soul,
Yeah.
it's still there.
It is.
It's powerful. It just hits us in a different order.
Right.
Which adds to that disorienting effect,
Yeah.
the unsettling feeling of the film.
It really does.
Yeah, and then you've got Pulp Fiction,
Oh, yeah. Pulp Fiction.
which isn't linear at all.
No, it's like a bunch of little stories woven together.
Yeah, it's a mosaic.
How do we even analyze that?
Pulp Fiction is like a masterclass
Yeah.
in nonlinear storytelling. Quentin Tarantino just, he jumps back and forth in time,
Right.
weaves these seemingly separate stories together,
Yeah.
but by the end, it all comes together
It does.
in this really cohesive way.
He's playing with time.
He's challenging our expectations
Yeah.
of how a story should unfold.
Yeah.
But even though it doesn't fit neatly into one of those frameworks,
Okay.
it still uses elements from all of them.
Oh, okay.
So each of those little stories has its own mini arc,
Right.
its own rising action climax resolution.
So we can still see those echoes of Freytag's pyramid
Exactly. Right.
within those smaller pieces.
But the way he puts them together
Yeah.
creates a whole other level of suspense.
Yeah, you're constantly guessing
Yeah.
what's going to happen next, how these pieces fit together.
Right. It's like a jigsaw puzzle
I like that.
where you don't know what the picture is
Right.
until the very end.
That's what makes it so fun.
Exactly. And those are just two examples. You've got Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind,
Okay.
Inception,
Yes.
Birdman.
Ooh, Birdman.
Yeah. All of these films challenge how we think about stories.
Yeah, it's so cool to see them pushing those boundaries.
It is, and the more familiar we are with those traditional frameworks,
Right.
the more we can appreciate those deviations.
Yeah.
That's like learning the rules of a game so you can break them,
I like that.
to create something new.
It's like a chef
Oh, yeah.
who knows all the classic techniques, but then they use that knowledge to make their own signature dishes, adding in new flavors.
Exactly. And just as a chef needs to understand those basic techniques,
Right.
writers need to understand storytelling.
The fundamentals.
The fundamentals, exactly, before they can effectively break the rules.
Right. You have to know what you're deviating from to make it meaningful.
Exactly.
Okay.
So while it's important to study these frameworks,
Right.
they're not meant to limit creativity.
Okay.
They're tools, guides, inspiration.
Right.
But the magic happens when you combine those with your own voice, your own perspective, your own story.
Your own spin on things.
Exactly. It's like taking those basic chords and scales
Okay.
and turning them into your own music.
I see that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And just like there are endless possibilities in music,
Right.
there are endless possibilities in storytelling.
So where does that leave us then?
Well,
For our own writing, should we stick to the rules or just throw them out?
I think both of those are extremes.
Okay.
Some writers love to outline.
Right.
They use those frameworks as their roadmap.
Right.
Others just let the story unfold naturally
Yeah.
and discover the structure along the way.
So there's no right way.
There's no right way.
It's about finding what works for you.
Exactly. The key is to be aware of these frameworks, understand how they work, and then use them to make your own choices.
Be intentional.
Be intentional, yes.
Okay.
Whether you're following them closely or doing something completely different,
Right.
the point is you're making those choices.
Yeah, it's like having a toolbox.
Oh, I like that.
You don't use every tool for every project.
Right.
But it's good to know what each one can do.
Exactly. A skilled carpenter knows which tool is right for the job.
Right. And a skilled writer
Yes.
knows the right storytelling technique
Exactly.
for their story.
So be intentional,
Okay.
understand the tools,
Yeah.
and build the story you want to tell.
I like that.
Yeah. And, you might even find yourself combining elements from different methods.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Creating your own unique approach.
Like a fusion cuisine.
Exactly.
Yeah, taking different traditions and blending them together.
The world of storytelling is huge.
It is.
And it's always changing.
Always.
There's always something new to learn.
a new way to tell a story.
It's an exciting time to be a storyteller.
It is.
Yeah, with so many new ways to tell stories.
It's amazing. So how do we make sure our stories stand out?
Yeah.
How do we connect with people?
That's the big question.
It is a big question and one we're going to try to answer
Okay.
in our next segment.
Okay.
We'll talk about some practical tips and techniques for applying these frameworks to your writing.
Okay.
Whether it's a novel, a screenplay,
Yeah.
a short story,
I'm ready.
even a blog post.
I'm ready to put this all into practice.
Let's do it.
All right. So we've really explored these frameworks, haven't we?
We have.
Freytag's Pyramid, Save the Cat,
Yeah.
Hero's Journey.
Yep.
We've seen how they can be applied. We've seen how they can be adapted
Right.
and how they can even be totally like thrown out the window.
Subverted.
Subverted, yes.
Yeah, we've looked at classic stories, we've looked at those unconventional narratives,
Yeah.
and we've even touched upon, the future of storytelling in this digital age.
We have. But now let's get practical.
Yes, let's get practical.
How do we use all of this knowledge to actually write our own stories?
Right. How do we craft compelling narratives?
That's the exciting part.
It is.
It's like having that blueprint and all the tools
Yeah.
to build something incredible.
Okay, so let's start with Freytag's pyramid.
Okay.
How do we actually take that pyramid shape and turn it into a story?
Well, think about sketching out your pyramid.
Okay.
You can do it visually or just in your mind.
Okay.
At the base, you've got the exposition.
Right.
Introduce your characters, set the scene, establish the situation.
Setting the stage.
Exactly.
Okay.
Then you move to rising action.
Right.
What events are going to escalate that tension?
Okay.
What's going to complicate things and lead to that climax?
It's like building a staircase.
It is like building a staircase.
Each step taking us higher.
And then at the top, you've got the climax.
The climax.
The
yeah.
point of no return, the protagonist faces their greatest challenge.
Just a big moment.
It is a big moment, and the outcome of that is going to affect the entire story.
So make it count.
Make it count. Absolutely.
Okay.
Then we come down from the climax into falling action.
Right.
Things start to settle, the consequences unfold, and then finally you've got that denouement, the resolution.
Tie up those loose ends.
Tie up those loose ends, give the reader that sense of closure.
Closure. Yeah, whether it's happy or sad.
Exactly. Happy, sad, or bittersweet.
It's like a nice smooth landing after a flight.
I love that analogy. A smooth landing is just as important as that exciting takeoff.
It is.
So now let's switch gears to Save the Cat.
Save the cat.
Remember those 15 beats?
Oh, yeah, those 15 beats.
Those are like guideposts.
Okay.
On your journey, they help you craft a narrative that's designed to hook the reader.
Having those beats makes it feel a lot less overwhelming
It does.
than just staring at a blank page.
Absolutely. So you start with that strong opening image,
Okay.
set the tone, the visuals, and then early on you have your protagonist save the cat.
Right.
Do something kind, brave, selfless.
Make us love them.
Make the audience love them instantly, and then bang, you've got the catalyst.
The catalyst.
That event that disrupts their world
Gets the story going.
gets the story going. Exactly. It's like that first domino falling.
Ooh, yeah.
And then from there, you follow those beats, those key moments
Okay.
to keep the story moving, the tension building, the reader engaged.
Okay.
Think of them as plot points that provide that structure, but
Yeah.
also allow you that creative freedom.
So it's like a roadmap, but you can take detours.
You can take detours, exactly.
Okay, like that.
Now let's talk about the hero's journey.
Okay.
It's not just a sequence of events.
Right.
It's about transformation.
It's about the inner journey.
Exactly, the inner journey as much as the outer adventure.
Right. It's not just what they do.
It's about who they become.
It's who they become. I like that.
Yeah, so you start by establishing the hero's ordinary world,
Right.
their life before the call to adventure.
Right. Show us who they are before everything changes.
Exactly, it's like the before picture.
Yes. I like that.
And then comes the call to adventure.
Right.
The challenge, the opportunity that sets them on their path. And don't forget the refusal of the call.
The refusal.
Yeah, they hesitate, they doubt, they're scared.
It makes them relatable.
It does.
Yeah, we all have those moments.
Right, but eventually they meet their mentor,
The mentor,
the guide, the teacher,
the Gandalf.
the Gandalf, the Obi-Wan Kenobi, the Dumbledore,
Yes.
and then they cross the threshold,
Ooh, the threshold.
the point of no return.
Right. They leave their world behind.
Nice step into the unknown, the adventure begins.
It's exciting.
It is. And then they face tests, allies, enemies.
Yep.
They're pushed to their limits, they make friends, they confront their demons,
Right. They have to grow.
they have to grow through challenge.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then they approach the inmost cave.
The inmost cave.
They prepare for their greatest challenge,
The calm before the storm.
the calm before the storm.
Oh, yeah.
And then comes the ordeal.
The
The climax of their journey.
Okay.
They face their fear, they confront their enemy, and they experience that death and rebirth.
Wow.
It could be literal, could be symbolic.
That's a big one.
It is.
Yeah.
And if they succeed, they get the reward.
The reward.
A treasure wisdom, a sense of peace.
Right. They did it.
They did it, but the journey's not over yet.
There's more.
There's more. They still have to go back.
A road back.
The road back to their ordinary world.
Right. They got to go home.
They do, but it's not always easy.
Yeah.
And then they have that resurrection,
The resurrection.
that final test that proves they've changed.
Right, the final proof.
Exactly. And then finally they return with the elixir.
The elixir.
They bring back a gift or some wisdom to share with their community.
So it comes full circle.
It does. They use what they've learned to help others.
I like that.
So as we apply all of this
Yes.
to our own writing,
Yeah.
remember, these are tools.
Not rules.
Not rules, exactly.
Okay.
Don't be afraid to experiment, to break free from that structure. Add your own twist.
Right. Some of the best stories do that.
They do.
Yeah.
It's about finding that balance between structure and creativity.
Right.
And as you get more comfortable with these frameworks,
Yeah.
you'll develop your own instincts.
Your own way of doing things.
Your own way of doing things. Exactly.
It's like learning to dance.
Oh, yeah.
You start with the steps,
Right.
but then you find your own rhythm.
You find your own style. And don't forget the most important ingredient.
What's that?
Your voice,
Right.
your perspective, your passion for that story.
Because that's what connects with people.
It is.
Yeah.
So go out there,
Yes.
armed with this knowledge,
Okay.
fueled by your passion,
Yes.
and tell stories that matter.
This has been an awesome deep dive
It has.
into story plot methods.
It really has.
Thank you for joining us.
The pleasure was all mine.
Until next time, happy writing.
Happy writing.